بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue with our lessons in the Aqaid of Al-Imam Nasafiyyah, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and with tawfiq and hidayah, that we are able to understand the subject, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with forgiveness, and may Allah make this lesson as a reason anyway our sins are forgiven and our prayers are answered. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in the husnul khatima. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. In the Aqaid of Al-Imam Nasafiyyah, and we were on the commentary of Al-Imam Al-Taftazani in our last lesson, and we are speaking about the meaning of knowledge that is dharoori and nadari. And we are within the third course of knowledge, where he mentioned al-aqlu, that is the intellect. Before this we spoke about al-hawas al-khamsa, the five senses. We spoke about prophetic reports, and then we have entered into the part where he mentioned al-aqlu. So basically al-Imam al-Nasafi mentioned about the types of the knowledge that comes from the intellect. So he break it up into what is dharoori and what is nadari. So this is basically so many of the things that we covered in our last lesson. So inshallah we will enter into our kitab, so it will be clear inshallah. So for those of you who have the PDF for today's lesson, we will begin from page 47. So before that, we spoke about the characteristics of knowledge that is dharoori and knowledge that is nadari. And then he mentioned وَمَا ثَبَتَ مِنْهُ أي من العلم الثابت بالعقل بالبديهة أو بديهة. He mentioned now a type of knowledge that is the same as dharoori, that is called the badiha. And then Al-Imam Al-Taftazani explains what is the meaning of badiha. So here basically what the author is saying is that knowledge of dharoori is also known as badiha. Knowledge of dharoori is also not known as badiha or badaha. So he mentioned أي بأول التوجه من غير احتياج إلى الفكر. What is the meaning when we say knowledge that is badiha or badaha? So Al-Imam Al-Taftazani mentioned بأول توجه من غير احتياج إلى فكر. So it is the same definition as what we mentioned when it comes to when we speak about knowledge that is dharoori or simple knowledge. We mentioned that this is a kind of knowledge that you are not in need to ponder, that it comes to you spontaneously. Yani, for example, when you open your eyes and you see the things in front of you, this knowledge is dharoori, that it comes you are not in need to ponder of the existence, for example, of the things in front of you. So this is called badaha, badaha or badiha. So this is another word that carries about the same meaning as the word dharoori. And then he gave an example. What is the example of knowledge that is dharoori, or knowledge that is based on badaha? So he said فَهُوَ ضَرُورِيٌّ كَالْعِلْمِ بِأَنَّ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ جُزْئِهِ. So this is the example. The example is the knowledge, for example, knowing something that a part of a particular thing, is smaller than the whole thing. Meaning the whole thing is smaller than its parts. The whole thing is smaller than parts. So let me give you an example. And for example, we take the example of human body. So for example, my hand is one of the parts of my body. My hand is one of the parts of my body. So in comparison of my hand to my whole body, surely my hand is smaller than my whole body. My hand is smaller than my whole body. My body is bigger than my hand. Why? Because my hand is just a part of the body. So when we speak about parts and whole, the whole is bigger than the part. The part is smaller than the whole. So this knowledge of the understanding that the part of something is smaller than the whole, and that the whole is bigger than the part, this is an example of knowledge that is dharoori, that you are not in need to ponder upon it. And if you look at this example, we ask the question, do I need to ponder that a part of something is smaller than the whole thing? So certainly we do not need to ponder. So this is the example of knowledge that is dharoori. So basically these are the examples he mentioned. Then he say فإنه بعد تصور معنى الكل والجزء والأعظم لا يتوقف على شيء. So once we have understood what is the meaning of the whole, what is meaning of the part, and we have understood which is bigger, that the whole is surely bigger than the part, say لا يتوقف على شيء. You are not in need to ponder to understand these realities. It is something that comes to you naturally. وَمَنْ تَوَقَّفَ فِيهِ. But if there are people, for example, they are hesitant, or they think and they want they cannot understand, for example, they want to ponder, if that happens, and even the simple things also some people require some ponderance. ومن توقف فيه حيث زعم أن جزء الإنسان كاليد مثلا قد يكون أعظم من الكل فهو لم يتصور معنى الكل والجزء. If a person is saying, but no, there is a possibility that the part of something can be bigger than the whole. So Al-Imam Mutaftazani mentioned that in the first place he does not understand what is the meaning of a part, what is the meaning of the whole. So how can a part of something be bigger than the whole? How can a part of the human body bigger than your human body? How can that be? It is impossible. It is impossible. No matter how big the hand, but it is part of the body. In comparison to the body, it is still small, because the body consists of everything. The whole, when we say a whole, the whole body consists of everything. So Al-Imam Taftazani is saying that if a person says that there is a possibility that the part can be bigger than the whole, it means that in the first place he does not understand what is the meaning of the whole and what is the meaning of the part. So this is basically examples of knowledge that is dharoori, or knowledge that is badiha or badaha. Clear, inshallah. So now he is going to speak about the second part of this knowledge of knowledge that we get from through our intellect. He said wama sabata bil istidlal. Now this is a bit different. So earlier we mentioned knowledge that is based on badaha, knowledge that is based on dharoori, knowledge that does not require any ponderance. The second part now is we are going to speak about knowledge that is based on istidlal. And the meaning of istidlal is to find for evidence. To find for evidence. And this is knowledge that we attain through ponderance and investigation. Knowledge that we ponder to investigation and from our ponderance. So he will give some examples. So he said, I binadhari fi dalili. So the meaning of istidlal, knowledge that is based on istidlal, he said that it is binadhari fi dalil, yani to ponder upon the evidence of a particular thing. Sawa'un kana istidlalan min al-illati 'ala al-ma'lum kama idha ra'a naran fa'alima anna laha dukhanan. So he gave an example, and if you see fire, certainly you know that there will be smoke. Certainly, you know that there will be smoke. So you saw the cause and you know the effect. You saw the cause and you are able to deduce through deduction the effect of the fire. That is, there will be smoke. So this is what he mentioned. This is an example of istidlal. So how do you know there is smoke? How do you know there is smoke? Because when you see any fire, and you know that smoke comes out from fire. So this is a way of using an evidence which you observe to deduce that smoke is present. So this is an what you call it, an example of using the illah, the reason or the cause, to find the effect. To find the effect. So if you twist it around, sometimes we use the effect to find the cause. We see the effect as an evidence, and we use the effect as an evidence that the cause is in existence. So this is what he mentioned after that. أو من المعلول على العلة. We are using the effect to prove the cause. What is an example? He say kama idha ra'a dukhanan. Now we twist. He twisted, and he just like a person, he doesn't see fire but he sees smoke. He doesn't see any fire but he sees smoke. Alima anna hunaka naran. So he knows by his observation that there is smoke. He knows that fire is in existence. So he said that this is minal ma'luli ala al-illah. We are using the effect to find the cause. So basically, he's saying whether you are using the cause to prove the effect, or you are using the effect to prove the cause, both of these is istidlal. Basically you are using dalil, evidences to prove your points. This is the meaning of istidlal. And he mentioned there is a slight differences, some scholars he mentioned وقد يخص الأول باسم التعليل والثاني بالاستدلال. Some scholars differentiate between the first example and the second example. So if you are using the cause to prove the effect, this is ta'lil, and it is another term. But if you use the effect to prove the cause, then it is istidlal. But this is what you call it, not the chosen judgment. So the chosen judgment, when we say istidlal, talabu dalil, using the evidences to prove our points, it comes in both ways. Whether we are proving the effect by the cause, or to prove the cause by the effect. And then he mentioned fahuwa iktisabi. Also it is known as iktisabi. So these are terminologies. So al-Imam Nasafiyyah, and you see in bracket, when he say wa ma sabata bil istidlal fahuwa iktisabi. Those knowledge that you are able to acquire through investigations and by evidences, it is called istidlal, and also it is called iktisabi. Iktisab, when it comes from the word iktasaba, and iktasaba basically to put in effort. To put in effort to find out about something. So it is also known as iktisabi. And then al-Imam Taftazani explain what is this meaning of iktisabi. He say I hasidun bil kasbi. That knowledge that is iktisab, it means that knowledge that you acquire by putting in efforts. So this is different than knowledge based on dharoora and badaha. Knowledge based on dharoori, as what we mentioned, you are not required to put in any efforts, because it comes into you naturally. It comes into you naturally. And when you touch something that is hot, automatically you know it is hot. There is no need for you to ponder whether it's hot or not. This is knowledge which is dharoori. But when it comes into iktisabi, there are so many efforts that a person needs to put in order to find the conclusions and the results. And then he mentioned وَهُوَ مُبَاشَرَةُ الْأَسْبَابِ بِالْإِخْتِيَارِ. Using the means, the asbab, and with intention. Using the asbab with intention, and not without any intention. Using the asbab with the intention to use them to find out something else. Then he gave the example كَالصَّرْفِ الْعَقْلِ وَالنَّظَرِ فِي الْمُقَدِّمَاتِ فِي الْإِسْتِدْلَالَاتِ وَالْإِسْرَاءِ. An example of knowledge that is iktisab, when you put in efforts. So he said that using the aql, and using the intellect, and using reflection, fil muqaddimat. The meaning of muqaddimat here we translate as the premises of arguments. The premises of arguments. When we want to analyze an argument. That's what we mentioned in the last lesson, the famous kalam, cosmological argument. al-alam mutaghayyir, that the universe is changing, wa kullu mutaghayyir hadith, and everything that is changing is contingent. Then the conclusion is al-alam hadith. So this is an example of an argument. So you have the first premise, the first muqaddimah, and you have the second muqaddimah, and then you have the natija. So this arrangement, we say this is tartibul muqaddimat. How we deduce through deduction the what you call it, the conclusion from the premises. So this act of arranging premises to form up conclusions, this act is iktisab. So it requires effort, correct or not? It requires any effort of the intellect, and it requires any ponderance to ponder upon the first premise, to ponder upon the second premise, and in order for us to get the conclusion. Wa taqlibul hadaqa, using our eyes to look at this place and to look at that place, and looking for signs. So this is any part of putting in efforts. Wa nahwu dhalika fil hissiyat. And likewise, when it comes to things that you can feel. Fal iktisabi, then he now he's going to explain the meaning of iktisab. So you say iktisabi a'ammu min al istidlali. When we say something, knowledge that is based on iktisab, it is more general than knowledge that is based on istidlal. So what is the difference? So he said that knowledge of istidlal, he said li'annahu alladhi yahsulu bin nadhari fi dalil. So knowledge that is based on istidlal, there is evidences. You are relying on evidences in order for you to make your judgments and your conclusion. So this is istidlal. But whereas knowledge that discuss be any form of effort that you put in is to attain that knowledge, it is iktisabi. Any form of effort. Even though the effort is something that is very small, just like the movement of the eyes as what he mentioned. So he said that not all fa kullu istidlali iktisabi, every knowledge that is based on istidlali is part of iktisabi, but not everything that is iktisabi is considered to be istidlali, because there are certain things that is iktisab but not istidlal. Then he gave the example kal ibsaril hasil bil qasdi wal ikhtiyar, just like using our eyes to scrutinize at something, to look at particular things, and with the intention to observe and to find out about certain things. So the fact that we put in effort to know, this is iktisabi. The fact that we put in effort to scrutinize, we put in effort to observe, this is knowledge that is iktisabi, but it is not istidlali, because we are not using any evidences. We are just using our sight, and we are putting in this effort to observe. So this is any knowledge that is any iktisabi. So basically, Al-Imam Taftazani, this is a kind of technical explanation, the difference between istidlal and iktisab. For simplicity, a lot of our scholars, for example, if you get the matan, Al-Imam Nasafi do not make any differentiation. And he said that istidlali fahuwa iktisabi. Knowledge based on istidlal is knowledge that is an iktisab, and that is any simple. But Al-Imam Taftazani mentioned that actually, there is a difference. And then he mentioned, and now he go back to dharoori. Wa amma dharoori, knowledge that is based on dharoori, faqad yuqalu fi muqabalatil iktisabi. So it is the opposite of iktisabi. So again, when we speak about knowledge that is dharoori, we mentioned that this is knowledge that does not require any form of ponderance, or you putting in efforts to find out. So it comes this knowledge comes to you automatically. So this is dharoori. So the opposite, he said fi muqabala, it is iktisabi. So iktisabi again, it is knowledge that you attain through efforts. You attain through putting in efforts. Wa yufassaru bima la yakunu tahsiluhu maqduran lil makhluq. So when it comes to the knowledge that is dharoori, he said that this knowledge is something that you cannot reject. Yani you cannot reject, meaning it comes into you directly. It comes into you directly, and you know it. And you know it in a way that you cannot reject. Yani just like when we see things in front of us, we know that these things are in existence, and we cannot reject it. We cannot reject it. Because it comes to us. It comes to us in the manner where we have to accept that we have to accept. So this is he mentioned that it cannot be rejected by the creations. وَقَدْ يُقَالُ فِي مُقَابَلَةِ الْإِسْتِدْلَالِ. And also it's mentioned it is the opposite of knowledge, that is istidlali. So dharoori basically he's saying the opposite is iktisabi, the opposite is istidlali. وَيُفَسَّرُ بِمَا يَحْصُلُ بِدُونِ فِكْرٍ وَنَظَرٍ فِي دَلِيلٍ. So knowledge that is dharoori again, and this is the same thing. So those who are following the class, do not be worried about saying what you call some of the things. Today I don't read any translation. I found out that the translation, many things are not accurate in the translation. So I hope those who are following in the class, yani our Abdul Razak di Jama'ah, based on my explanations, and then you look and you add the translations. And actually Jama'ah, it is what you call, it is not difficult. It is not difficult, but there are certain things, Al-Imam Taftazani, and he's very, very technical. This is the thing. But at the end of the day, inshallah, after we come through, inshallah, I will just do a summary. This can be summarized. He's just being what you call a lot of technical, which is mashallah, and it helps us in understanding, especially those who are really interested to learn the commentary of Aqaid Nasafiyyah. But in reality, it is not something that is difficult. Do not be worried. So basically, he's just saying, again, now he is going to define what is dharoori. Actually, it's something that is known. So he said, look at what he mentioned. He said, وَيُفَسَّرُ, knowledge of dharoori can also be interpreted or can be defined بِمَا يَحْصُلُ بِدُونِ فِكْرٍ. It is knowledge that you can get without thinking. وَنَظَرٍ فِي الدَّلِيلِ, without pondering upon evidences. So this knowledge dharoori. فَمِنْهَا هُنَا جَعَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ الْعِلْمَ الْحَاصِلِ بِالْحَوَاسِ اِكْتِسَابًا. Some scholars say that knowledge that is based on the senses is knowledge iktisabi and not dharoori. So remember last time when we speak about the senses, the first cause of knowledge in al-hawas, we spoke about the sight, we spoke about the ears, and we mentioned that knowledge that we get from our senses is dharoori. So there is no contradiction here. So but there is something delicate, some differences which is fine and delicate. If you open your eyes and you look at something, the knowledge that you get is dharoori. But the moment you scrutinize and you observe, it becomes an iktisabi. So this is the difference. This is a difference. Some scholars say that it is iktisabi based on this, because when you are observing something, let me give an example now. What you call it? I am using my eyes. I'm looking at this book, and I open this book, and I found what you call it. There are some red color letters. There are some red color letters, and I'm looking at it, and I see that this book is in the Arabic language. Some scholars they mention this is iktisabi. Why? Despite I'm just looking at something, because I'm not only looking, but I am deriving something from what I see. I know that this book is in the Arabic language, and I know that some colors are black, some colors are red. So now, meaning I put in efforts to use my sight to what you call it, to come out with this conclusion. So in a way it is iktisabi. In a way it is iktisabi. So this is what he mentioned. He said, I hasilan bi mubasharatil asbab bil ikhtiyar. So I'm using the asbab, I'm looking at the book bil ikhtiyar, and I purposely want to look what language is this book. So meaning my sight now is different already. It is not any dharoori, but it is iktisabi, in a sense, like or nadhari. Because why? I'm using ponderance. I'm deriving conclusion. I'm deriving something else from my sight. So I'm using the asbab bil ikhtiyar, and I'm willingly doing it, not what you call it, just looking around without any intention. Wa ba'duhum ضروريا أي حاصلا بدون الاستدلال. And some of them, and he mentioned that it is still any considered any to be ضروري, what you call it, because it is not any considered to be what you call it, looking at any form any of evidences. فظهر أنه لا تناقض في كلام صاحب البداية. And then he mentioned, if we understand any this difference between iktisabi and ضروري, and based on the senses and earlier we mentioned, then we find there will be no contradiction as what is mentioned by the author of Al-Bidayah. The author of Bidayah is Al-Imam As-Sabuni. Al-Imam As-Sabuni, and he is one of the scholars of the Maturidi school. It is somebody, and he gave me this translation. It is translated by Zaytuna Institute. So this is in the book, the translation, and they make the translation like this. So Sheikh Sabuni, his name is Imam Nuruddin As-Sabuni. So in this book, he is Al-Bidayah fi Usuluddin. This is where Al-Imam Taftazani is quoting him. So Al-Imam Taftazani is saying that there is no contradiction as what is mentioned by this author, Sahibul Bidayah, the one who wrote Bidayah, حيث قال إن العلم الحادث نوعان, because the author of Al-Bidayah mentioned in his book that knowledge of the creations are of two types. So he mentioned ضروري, this is the first type, وهو ما يحدثه الله في نفس العبد من غير كسبه واختياره. ضروري, he said then, it is a knowledge that Allah created the understanding in a person without his will, or without any what you call it, any efforts by him. So this is knowledge that is ضروري. كالعلم بوجوده وتغير أحواله, like the knowledge of his existence. Like now, for example, we know that we are in existence, we feel our existence, so this is knowledge ضروري. And likewise the change of our mood, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad. And then the second one, he said واكتسابي. Number two is knowledge that is iktisabi. وهو ما يحدثه الله فيه بواسطة كسب العبد. Knowledge that is iktisabi, Sheikh Sabuni, he mentioned that it is knowledge that we attain بواسطة كسب العبد, by efforts that we put in. Efforts by put in, by looking for evidences, by pondering upon the things that we see, the things that we what you call it, try our best to come out with those conclusions. وهو مباشرة أسبابه, and using all forms of asbab and means for us to get that knowledge. So this knowledge that is iktisabi. And then he mentioned وأسبابه ثلاثة. So now Al-Imam Tazani is quoting from Al-Imam As-Sabuni. So again, this is a bit technical. It's not really what you call it, it's not really something that is important, meaning he's just saying that in order for us to understand that there is no contradiction between what is ضروري and what is iktisabi pertaining to the senses, because earlier Al-Imam Nasafiyyah, he mentioned knowledge that you get from your senses is ضروري, but some scholars mention iktisabi. So he said there is no contradiction. An example is what is mentioned by this author of Al-Bidayah. So he said that when the author of Bidayah speaks about iktisabi, he said وَأَسْبَابُهُ ثَلَاثَةً, that knowledge of iktisabi, the causes are three. Number one, al-hawasu salima. So meaning he's saying that the author of Al-Bidayah is saying that the knowledge of iktisabi that you can attain by the hawas, by the senses. So is there a contradiction? What is mentioned by Al-Imam Nasafi, that from the senses you attain knowledge that is ضروري, but the Bidayah he mentioned that it is iktisabi. So is there a contradiction? Al-Imam Tatazani mentioned there is no contradiction, because we have to understand where he's coming from. When he mentioned any senses, what does it mean when he meant any by senses? So again, that example just now I gave. So if I use my eyes to look at this book, if I use my eyes to look at this book with the will, with my intention, I need to find out what language is this book, what color is the print. This sight of mine is iktisabi by the definition of Sheikh As-Sabuni in his book Al-Bidayah. Why it is iktisabi? because they argue that I am using efforts, I'm using any, even though I'm using any my senses, but I'm using my senses in a way that I am benefiting and I'm acquiring any knowledge any from it, which I intended it, and I put in efforts any to attain it. So this is any the point of difference any between knowledge any that is iktisab and knowledge that is dharoori. Dharoori any as what any he mentioned that you got no intention. I gave the example. He gave the example any that you know that you are in existence and this is something any that you don't really need to ponder because it comes any to you naturally. You know that you are happy now. You know that you are sad, for example, because any this is any your feelings. So you know this. But when comes any to looking any at things, he said that this is iktisabi because any you are putting in efforts any to acquire any some any information which you want. So he mentioned the three causes of knowledge of iktisabi in his bidayah. Al-hawasu salima, yani the senses, and then the khabar sadiq, and the same thing that like Imam Nasafiyyah, what you call it, the truthful any reports, and then one nadharul aqli. The third yani is the intellect. Then he mentioned summa qal wal hasilu min nadharil aqli naw'an. So Sheikh Sabuni yani mentioned that when it comes to the intellect there are two types. ضروري يحصل بأول النظر من غير تفكر كالعلم بأن كل أعظم من جزء. A lot of this repetition basically because he quoting from other books. So when it comes to ضروري, knowledge that you attain by the first ponderance without any thinking, without any the need to reflect. كالعلم بأن كل أعظم من الجزء, like the knowledge that the whole is bigger than the parts, as what we mentioned earlier, the example of the hand and the body. والاستدلال يحتاج إلى فيه إلى نوع تفكر, knowledge of istidlali and we are in need to ponder, upon. كالعلم بوجود النار عند رؤية الدخان, like the knowledge that we get when we see the smoke, we know that fire is in existence. So this is the example of knowledge that is istidlali. So there is no contradiction when Sheikh Sabuni mentioned that knowledge of iktisabi also there is any dharoori. So how come that he mentioned knowledge that under any iktisab there is what you call it, there is any dharoori. So he mentioned that there is no any contradiction. There is no contradiction. And based on the examples that we gave, that certain knowledge is regarded as what you call it iktisabi, but what you call it, it is different the knowledge that is dharoori, even though sometimes they use the terms interchangeably, but they mean differently. Differently. So this is basically what he's saying. And then he mentioned waa'l'ilham. Ilham is it is in English we call it you have this let me see. There is this word and always we use when it comes inspiration. Ya salam. Usually in English, if you do a direct translation, it is any inspiration. So there is a difference between inspiration and revelation. When it comes to revelation and al-wahyu, it is specifically for prophets and messengers. But when it comes to ilham, it is a form of inspiration, and Allah bless servants who are close to Him. And before we enter into ilham, let me just summarize some of the things that we mentioned again. I do not want anyone to be confused or anything. So it is not something that we should worry much about, because basically, as what I mentioned, both Al-Imam Nasafi and Imam Taftazani is teaching us about the difference between knowledge that is dharoori and nadhari. So dharoori sometimes is mentioned as badihi. When it comes to nadhari, sometimes it's mentioned as istidlali. Sometimes it's mentioned at iktisabi. So the main any difference any between ضروري and iktisabi or نظري or istidlali is that ضروري or badihi, knowledge any that you attain without any reflection, without any ponderance. This is knowledge that is ضروري. Sometimes in English they call it simple knowledge. No, ضروري meaning simple knowledge. Any knowledge any that comes to you naturally, like you understand that you are in existence, you understand any your feelings, and for example that you're happy or you're sad now. This is any knowledge that is ضروري. When it comes into knowledge any that is نظري or iktisabi or istidlali, so to make it simple any for all of us, basically any it means any that is it is knowledge that you are in need to put in efforts and to ponder. You need to put in efforts and to ponder. And sometimes the scholars they use these words interchangeably, like in the case of Sheikh Sabuni, because he mentioned that al-hawas is iktisabi, but at the same time also he mentioned that it is ضروري. So what he meant basically is that the hawas itself is considered to be ضروري. We attain knowledge ضروري from the hawas and from the senses. But when we put in effort using our senses to find out on certain evidences, it becomes iktisabi. It becomes iktisabi. So there is no contradiction between what is mentioned by the author. This is what the last thing that he mentioned when he quoted the bidayah of Al-Imam Nuruddin As-Sabuni. Sheikh Nuruddin As-Sabuni lived what you call it before Imam Taftazani. He came after Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi. Afwan, he is in the same age as Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi. So they live in the 5th century. They live in the 5th century. So when we say Sabuni, it is not the Syrian Sheikh that just passed away, because a lot of people Sheikh Sabuni, we call it Sheikh Muhammad Sabuni. Sheikh Muhammad Sabuni is a Syrian and he passed away, who wrote Safatu Tafasir. So this Sabuni lived 1,000 years ago. Sheikh Nuruddin Sabuni, and as what I mentioned, his Bidayah is translated, just translated into the English language, and mashallah the translation is very good. So basically I summarize again when it comes into the intellect. So Al-Imam Nasafi, and if you look at the text of the Aqaid Nasafiyyah itself, if you look at the one in brackets, so let us just look at the one in brackets. You will find it's very simple. You say wa ammal aqlu, as for the intellect, فهو سبب للعلم أيضا. فهو سبب, it is also one of the causes of knowledge. And then he mentioned after that, if you look here, straight away وما ثبت بالبديهة, and anything that is what you call it by badiha is what we mentioned. It is ضروري, considered to be ضروري. And then he gave an example what is knowledge of ضروري. And then he speaks about istidlali. So istidlali is the opposite of ضروري, that you are in need to put in efforts to look at evidences. فهو اكتسابي, and Imam Nasafi mentioned that it's the same as knowledge that is iktisabi. So that's it. If you look at Aqaid Nasafiyyah, it's very simple. Then straight away he goes ilham. So the thing about Aqaid Nasafiyyah the matan is very simple, in the sense that basically Al-Imam Nasafi is saying that the intellect is one of the causes of knowledge, and the two types of knowledge that we derive from the intellect is, one is the ضروري, the other one is iktisabi. The one is iktisabi, and the difference as what we mentioned. And then he mentioned waa'l'ilham, as for inspiration. Then Imam Taftazani explained what is ilham. He said al-mufassar bi ilqa'i ma'na fil qalbi bi tariq al-fayd. So it is a form of inspiration where human beings attain knowledge by blessings. By blessing, meaning not by means, not by the normal means, not by means of learning or means of pondering, but it is a creation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of the human being. So this is the meaning of ilham. So ilham Allah created the understanding in a person. So this is the meaning, the definition of ilham. So Al-Imam Nasafi mentioned laisa min asbabil ma'rifati bi sihhati shay'in inda ahli al-haq. Al-Imam Nasafi mentioned that ilham or inspiration, and is not any of the causes of knowledge. Is not any one of the causes of knowledge, based on what the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Ahlul Haq, Ahlul Haq meaning Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, scholars Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Then Al-Imam Taftazani now is going to analyze what is mentioned by Al-Imam al-Nasafi, and there are certain things that he mentioned that has to be corrected. So let us see what he mentioned. We just read a bit. Hopefully we can finish. I think we just finish what you call it. We finish this, because after that we will enter into the chapter of Ilahiyat. After this, so he mentioned hatta yarida bihi al-i'tirad ala hasl al-asbab fi thalathatin mazkura. So he said that the reason why Al-Imam al-Nasafi mentioned about ilham, so he is because so that he at the same time he will answer those who will argue that he is what you call it, specifying only three as the causes of knowledge. So if a person asks there are actually more than three, what about ilham? So here Imam Nasafi is going to answer that ilham is not one of the causes of knowledge. Wa kana al-awla an yaqul, so Imam Taftazani mentioned that it is better for him to say min asbab al-ilmi bi shay. Don't use the word ma'rifah. Why use ma'rifah? Because Imam Nasafi mentioned min asbab al-ma'rifah. So Imam Taftazani mentioned it is better to say min asbab al-ilm, because earlier he mentioned asbab al-ilm. But why using asbab al-ma'rifah? But at the end of the day, what Imam Nasafi is saying, that is the same. Whether you are saying ma'rifah or you are saying ilm, it is the same. Then he mentioned illa annahu hawala tanbih ala anna muradana bil ilmi wal ma'rifah wahid. So Imam Tazani mentioned that what is meant by Imam Nasafi is that both meant the same, and whether you say ma'rifah or ilm, it is the same thing. لا كما اصطلح عليه البعض من تخصيص العلم بالمركبات والكليات والمعرفة بالبسائط والجزئيات. Although some scholars he mentioned they differentiate between ma'rifah and ilm, they say that when it comes to ilm, it is what you call it, the universals, the universals, and when it comes into ma'rifah, it is the particulars. So they differentiate, some scholars. إلا أن تخصيص الصحة بالذكر مما لا وجه له. And the second thing Imam Tazani mentioned, that there is no need to put the word bisihhati shay. Bisihhati shay. Why? He said ثم الظاهر أنه أراد أن الإلهام ليس سببا يحصل بالعلم لعامة الخلق. Because what actually he meant, Imam Nasafi meant that inspiration is not one of the causes of knowledge. This is in the general sense, not in the specific sense, because there are people whom Allah bless them with inspiration, and it is one of the causes of knowledge, which he will give the example. So he said that it is better for him not to say bisihhati shay, because you are encompassing everything, but in reality they are exceptions. In reality they are exceptions. So this is what he said, wa yasluhu lil ilzami ala al ghayr. So he said that there are others who receive inspiration, and that is a cause of knowledge for them. Wa illa fala shakka annahu qad yahsu bihi al ilm. He said there is no doubt that there are people who one of the causes knowledge for them is inspiration. Not everyone, but when it comes to generally, yes, inspiration is not one of the causes of knowledge, but there are people whose inspiration is one of the causes of the knowledge that they possess. وَقَدْ وَرَدَ الْقَوْلُ بِهِ فِي الْخَبَرِ, and it is narrated in a narration. نَحْوُ قَوْلِهِ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. Then he brings in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "Alhamani Rabbi," that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire me, that Allah inspire me. So this kind of inspiration is real. This is knowledge. This is one of the causes of knowledge, but this is specifically for prophets and messengers. وَحُكِيَ عَنْ كَثِيرٍ مِنَ السَّلَفِ. And likewise there are narrations on the scholars of the Salaf, scholars of the Salaf, and the scholars who live in the first 300 years Hijriya. وَأَمَّا خَبَرُ الْوَاحِدِ الْعَدْلِ وَتَقْلِيدُ الْمُجْتَهِدِ فَقَدْ يُفِيدَانِ الظَّنِّ. And then lastly he mentioned that the report of a single person who is trusted and following a person who is mujtahid, both of this is knowledge that is based on zon, speculation, meaning not based any on yaqeen, because it is based on ijtihad. It is based any on a single report of a single person. والاعتقاد الجازم الذي لا يقبل الزوال فكأنه أراد بالعلم ما لا يشملهما. And then he mentioned, although a person can comes to conviction, although he follows any mujtahid, he follows this report any of one person, khabar wahid, it can bring any to conviction. So he mentioned that what is meant any by al-Imam al-Nasafi, what is meant any by al-Imam al-Nasafi is then when he mentioned al-ilm, asbabul ilm, ilm here yani is yaqeen, not zon, not any something not what you call it any zon. Wa illa fala wajha li hasril asbab fi salasa. So otherwise any he will not what you call it, make it specifically any causes of knowledge any as three. So what he meant any by knowledge is yaqeen and not zon. So that is why he didn't speak any about taqlid al mujtahid. That's what he mentioned here, following any the mujtahid, because any it is knowledge based on zon. Likewise the report any of a single person, a trustworthy person, and is also any based any on zon. That is why he does not classify it as the causes of knowledge. So al-Imam Nasafi basically did not put in ilham as the causes of knowledge. He does not put the report of a single person who is trustworthy as a cause of knowledge. He does not put the taqlid of the mujtahid as a cause of knowledge. Why? Because all these things based on zon, speculation, and the knowledge that is meant by al-Imam Nasafi is 100% in conviction. So that is why he only speak any about three causes of knowledge. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. So by this, alhamdulillah, we have ended yani the first yani part yani of epistemology in Aqaid and Nasafiyyah in the commentary of Imam Taftazani. So inshallah, for those who are following, alhamdulillah, yani next lesson yani we will enter into Aqidah. So he will begin by speaking about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I hope it will be, mashallah, I have a lot of more relations with the books that we have studied before this, and I hope that what you call it, our viewers are benefiting inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. I do not if you have any questions you can ask so far I see there is no any question, so inshallah ta'ala we will stop here and we will continue in our next lesson inshallah next week. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.